Today on Perpetual Projects, we are going to take two Chrysler 300s and make one out of them. So this is the car we're fixing. If you watched our last video, we figured out what was wrong with it, which is everything. Really a lot more than I thought was going to be wrong with it. At the end of that video, I said I was going to finish tearing that motor down, and I'll just let you guys know that we ended up with a good block, a good crank, 8 good rods, 6 good pistons, and 1 good head. So we'll see what we can make out of that. Maybe we can make like a, no, we're not. It's just for future projects. It's just we'll figure out something to do with it later. But for right now, I needed to get it tore down so I could get it out of my way. But today what we're gonna do is we're gonna pull this car in and we're gonna completely strip it. What we're after is to get any usable parts that we need for this car out of this car, and then get rid of the rest of it, and it's probably going to go to the scrapyard. Some of the parts we'll save. We'll save the doors and the body panels that aren't too destroyed. The front bumper's destroyed. The back bumper's okay. All of the fenders and everything could be used, but they all have problems. So we'll just throw them on a pallet behind the garage here and save them for possibly a future project. But the main thing that we're after is the engine and the exhaust system, and then any small pieces that we come along that we might need for this one. So for now, we're gonna get this pulled in, start getting it stripped, and I'll check back in with you probably once this thing is completely stripped and we're ready to pull the red one back in and start transferring parts into the red one to get it running. Stay tuned to the end, because our plan is by the end of this video, this car is gonna run and drive, and we're gonna be ready to test it and make sure it's good to go so we can list it on Facebook and flip it to pay for the project.
So we like to save what we can, but yeah, we're just gonna throw out that carpet. It's not worth it, and the other side over there is just as bad.
Okay, well, that's about as far as we can go right now. The next thing that needs to come out is this HVAC box, but it's connected to the heater hoses, and this car has coolant in it. And then also the AC, which I believe, we'll see if it's not, if it's got a charge in it, we'll recover it before we pull it apart. So I just saw something interesting. It's kind of crazy, but I never really considered it. But if you're looking to run a battery cable to relocate, go to the junkyard. These cars are all over the junkyard, and with the battery in the trunk, that's a nice heavy gauge, good copper wire that goes from all the way from the trunk to the front of this car. So just a quick tip on somewhere on a part that you can get at the junkyard. And I mean, it wouldn't be too expensive. It definitely wouldn't be as expensive as that cable would be new. That's pretty much it, all we're taking out for right now. We are going to strip this bare, all the wiring, everything, because I want to keep all the wiring. Not only do I plan on potentially flipping more of these cars, but I also want to use that Hemi over there. Actually, that Hemi over there, I want to build for my Magnum. And then the one that's in my Magnum, I want to put in something. I don't know what I'm going to put it in yet, but I need to have as much of the wiring as I can keep, because I want to try to run it off the stock computer with some type of tuner, and I don't know how if that's even possible at this point. But if I get rid of the wiring, it definitely won't be possible. So anyway, I'm gonna check back in in the morning. We're gonna get all these parts that we've got scattered everywhere in here moved outside. Most of it's just gonna go outside and get rained on. I mean, it's all busted up and broken. It's listed on Facebook Marketplace. If somebody needs a part for their car, we're letting them go super cheap. So tomorrow, push it forward after we clean the garage out, and then start getting the engine pulled out, and then by that point we'll have it on the lift and we can drop everything out from the bottom. And then once that's out, we can finish the interior and we'll throw it on the trailer, and then pretty sure this car's going to scrap. I might post the shell on Marketplace for a day or two, but I'm not hanging on to it for very long. I don't have room to store it. So anyway, we'll check back in the morning. See you guys in a bit. Day 3. Well, actually, half day 3. I don't know how to say that. We've worked on this 2 half-a-days. This is the 3rd half-a-day. Anyway, we're gonna pull the motor out today. I did have to move my pad in front of my toolbox so the cherry picker would roll far enough forward to make the transmission clear. We can go up and over, and you know, that's the deal. Something else today is kind of funny. When I got this car, the guy told me, don't know what's wrong with it, the trunk doesn't close. So for the first 2 half-days, the trunk didn't close and you could just open it. Somehow yesterday I fixed it, and I don't know how or what I did, but now the trunk is latched There's no wiring harness in it, so we can't use the button to open it. We're gonna send Amber through the car to pull on the safety release inside. I just thought that was kind of funny. It's not really that funny now that I said it on camera, but it's just one of those ironic things, of course. Now that I expect it not to latch, it does. Anyway, we're gonna finish stripping it. We'll time lapse it. Next thing after that is get this one out of here and then get everything cleaned up so we can start putting the red one back together. Amber thinks this is gonna go badly. Don't do this at home. I can't get that bolt loose with the impact, so we're gonna use a wrench and a wrench extender. Nope, we're not gonna do that.
Heat wrench? We don't have enough of those.
Well, what am I gonna heat?
I don't know, what's stuck?
The bolt. Okay, let's try again. I think I'm heating the nut up. I'm really not sure.
So you knew the answer to what am I going to heat?
Well, yeah, but I guess a better question would have been, how am I going to heat the nut up? I think it's right here, but I can see the one for the front, but I can't see the one for the back. I'm just going to pour some fire on down the bolt to whatever it hits at the bottom of it. I could feel what I think is the nut down in there, but I don't know for sure. I can't see it. Okay.
Well, it's hot.
Yeah, it's hot. Something's hot. I don't know if the right part's hot. I guess as a last resort, we kind of try to cut the bolt head off. I don't know of any, I don't have any other answers. That's what we're gonna do. I don't know what you think is so interesting. All we're doing is supporting all the spots that are lowest so that nothing's dragging the ground.
So we have these $15 Harbor Freight dollies.
$13?
I'm sorry, $13 Harbor Freight dollies. I mean, they're each supposed to hold 1,000 pounds each, so we should be fine. And now we can move this contraption, hopefully.
Well, we're gonna probably have to move everything else out of the way because we need to get this to the back. But first we need to get this car off the lift. So I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm really wishing I had a dead man jack right now. The engine is all the way to the front of the car, so we don't have a lot of weight to offset. I mean, there's some, it's not like intimately gonna fall, but it's not very, I don't like it. So we're just gonna get this out of the way and let this car down so that if it does decide to fall, it doesn't have far to before it hits the ground. Less stuff will get broken that way. I've painted myself into a corner here. I wasn't thinking. I really wish I had a clear floor lift instead of the one that has the cables on the bottom. But so what we're gonna do is take the engine, transmission, and suspension all apart. The motor mounts are bad, so we're gonna have to swap them over anyway. Right now, I'm really regretting not pulling the torque converter bolts out while it was in the car. I knew I was separating these when I got it down. I don't know why I didn't pull those out. So I'm gonna work on that. I don't think I'm gonna set time lapse up because you probably won't be able to see anything. We'll come back to you once we get this all separated and get ready to get the car down and try to get it moved out with no wheels or tires or suspension on it.
I'm trying to turn it.
Now it's time to clean everything. I don't think these motor mounts are gonna survive. Check the ones in the other car if they're not in good shape. O'Reilly has them.
Now we're gonna go outside and pressure wash it all.
Gotta figure out how to get the engine stand outside to pressure wash it. This should be interesting.
So as you can see, our ground right outside the garage is not conducive to those small little wheels. So our plan is, we already have the cherry picker on the back of the truck. So we're gonna just back it up over here, hook it up to the stand, engine stand and all, pick it up, move it out here so we can pressure wash it and do the same thing to move it back in. We'll see if this works. It worked!
Of course it worked.
Because it was my idea?
Oh. It didn't work because it was your idea. It worked because it's the old beater Dodge.
I was a little worried about the flex on that, but... Alright, so we've gotten everything taped up where we don't want water to get in. Did the same thing to this, and he's doing the same thing on the red car. We're gonna go ahead and pressure wash the firewall on it. And now I'm just taking some good degreaser and pre-soaking everything while he gets the pressure washer set up.
Do you ever have one of those moments where you're like, really wish I would have thought that through? So we've got the 300 completely stripped. You'll notice that it has no wheels and tires or suspension. My original plan was to back the trailer underneath it, let it down on the lift. Solid plan. Amber's shaking her head. Yeah, that's a good idea. The trailer won't fit between the posts of the lift.
Oh.
So we have 4 Harbor Freight furniture dollies, the cheap ones, the little ones, $12 ones, $13 ones. We've got 3 floor jacks and a whole lot of want to.
And a winch.
And a winch. So tentatively the plan is get it down on the Harbor Freight dollies. Don't know how that's going to go when we get to the crossover portion for the lift. We may have to try to jack it up and, you know, little at a time. I decided to leave the trailer as far out the door as I could and still get the ramps on the concrete, because if I do it in here, then I've got all this to contend with. Out there I have a little bit more room. Not a lot more room because we've got so much crap in this garage right now, but yeah, so that's our plan. We're gonna set the camera up on the toolbox and time lapse the whole thing, and if it goes really bad, at least we'll have it on camera. New 300 in the garage. We're gonna start getting this car ready for that engine and that front suspension. So I showed you the motor mounts on the other one. Fortunately, these ones are in real good shape. They're nice and solid. Oh, the car's not tied down or in park or anything, so. But I need to get, I'm not gonna use this power steering pump. I know all the stuff on that one worked because I heard it all work, because it ran and I saw him steer it and it didn't make noise or anything. So we're gonna keep that power steering pump. We're keeping that rack because it's installed in the suspension that we're gonna put on here. We're gonna get rid of this condenser and this power steering cooler because it's broke. It's missing the clip that's supposed to hold it in there. and the other one is all packaged together as a whole unit, radiator support and all. So I'm just gonna swap that in here, and the transmission lines just pop off here. I still have to get the torque converter out. I'm gonna put a torque converter seal in, but before I do that, I'm gonna drop the fluid in this transmission and make sure that I don't find all the clutches in the pan or any broken parts. If I don't find any broken parts, I'm gonna roll the dice and put a filter and new fluid in it and put a torque converter seal in it, and hopefully it runs and drives once we get it running. If not, then I guess we drop the tranny out of it and rebuild a Nag 1, which will be cool because I've never done it before. Unfortunately, that means I don't have a book, but they're not that hard to come by. So hopefully it runs and drives. If not, you guys get to see a video on rebuilding my first Nag 1. And hopefully it doesn't go as bad as rebuilding my 400th 727, because that went absolutely horrible. I'm gonna set the camera up. There's not a lot to show you guys as far as what we're doing here. It's not really that interesting. We're just gonna time lapse it. I'm gonna get the front suspension out of it, get the other suspension in it, and then start working on getting everything up here ready for our donor engine. Why are you recording me? I'm just gonna fix some of this wiring. Unfortunately, I don't have any split loom this big, and the same thing was wrong with the other one. The same thing is also wrong with my Magnum. I'm just gonna tape it up. I'll tape all that up. It doesn't, I don't see any problems with the wires. And like I said, my Magnum's the same way. The other 300 was the same way. I think that's just a problem with these cars. But all this back here where that split loom got melted, I'm gonna take all that off, check it out, make sure everything's good. The O2 sensor one is pretty destroyed. I'll fix that one. You already saw me, I fixed this one in the time lapse. I'm just fixing all this up so that the wiring is in as good a shape as I can make it. And then once we get that done, it's time to throw the other front end underneath here. And then once we get everything hooked back up, I think it's gonna be time to probably start working on setting the motor in here. We are getting a late start. Whenever you're working on something like this, especially if it's in this is a 2007, if it's in that era, your local pick-a-part usually will have a bunch of these different cars in there. And sometimes you go down a rabbit hole. Well, I went down a rabbit hole and that cost us about 4.5, 5 hours now. I was on the internet this morning and I saw this. So I went to Pick-a-Part to get a center cap because I'm missing one. And it doesn't make that big a difference. It doesn't affect the drivability of the car at all, but it just makes it look a little nicer. I think it was like $5. But then it happened to me. I went to look for that, and then I also happened to see a 300 that just came in 2 days ago that still had an engine cover on it. I thought, well, that isn't that expensive. It'd be like $40, and it'll just make the engine look a lot more complete like it's supposed to look, and I feel like that would be better. But the same car, although somebody already got the whole motor out of it, it was wrecked. So that's a pick-apart tip for you. If you go to Pick-a-Part and you're looking for a motor or transmission or something, don't pull one out of a car that's not wrecked. Because if it's not wrecked, it's there for a reason. And aside from getting wrecked, there's only two major components that generally cause cars to go to a Pick-a-Part: motor, transmission. If it's a Hemi or a 4.7, just about guarantee it's a motor every single time, because that's just what they do. They go bad and it's too expensive to put another motor in them. So, but this car was wrecked and it looked like it was fairly low mileage, and look what I found. Now, they are not perfect, but compared to what we have, they are brand new. So for $40 a piece, I thought that was a smoking deal. Now, another tip for pick apart. Even if you're not going for something that you might need it for, always take some type of power tool with a battery. The driver's seat was all the way in the back position and you can't get to the back bolts on the seat. So I had to come all the way home, grab my drill or my impact and go all the way back so that I could get the rear bolts out of this seat. And
which is like 45 minutes away.
Yeah, so I mean, it probably isn't worth it. It's, to be honest, it's probably not going to increase the value of the car at all.
I think it'll make it sell easier.
It'll make it sell easier, and somebody's going to get a nicer car. And I don't have that much in it, and that's just the type of person I am. I would rather sell somebody a nice car that they're going to be proud to drive and make a little less profit or not make anything. In this case, I'm making something because I have all the parts that I got. But if I was going to make a profit on this, I would rather eat into my profit a little bit and sell a nicer car. And I know that's not normal and everybody's gonna say I'm crazy, but that's just the way I am. I don't like to sell stuff that I wouldn't want to buy myself. So I also got some really nice factory floor mats that are, I mean, they're a little dirty, but they'll clean up real nice. We'll pressure wash those. I got all 4 of them. This is all out of the black car. And I got this lower splash shield, which seems to be missing on every single car. We're gonna have to repair it a little bit because when they pulled the motor out of that car, they just ripped it off. And I mean, why are people so destructive at pick apart? I mean, they ruined this, and we'll make it work. We'll figure it out. Would have had a nice inner fender well, but yeah, you can see how they, instead of taking these 2 clips out, they just sawzawed it. It's just so wasteful. Anyway, we're gonna put this up in the air. I got a torque converter seal because based on the mud that's on the torque converter's definitely been out of the transmission. I'm gonna pull it out, I'm gonna drain it, I'm gonna look it over. I don't have any way to inspect it. I don't know, unless I can see something seriously wrong with it, I'm not gonna know if it's good or bad. But I'm gonna drain it, put some fresh fluid in it. We're gonna drop the pan on the transmission, see what we find inside the pan, and just cross our fingers that we don't find all the clutches in the bottom of the pan. Then we'll let it down and stick the motor in it. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and pull this transmission pan off. Unfortunately, a torque converter seal, or actually a torque converter seal, is easy to find. All 3 of the major automotive parts stores in this town had one, and not a single one of them was the one that fits this transmission. I don't know why it's called a torque converter seal, or they call it a torque converter seal, but it doesn't actually fit on the torque converter. It I don't know where it goes, but it looks like the one I need is actually in their computers called a front pump seal, and well, nobody has one of those, so we're just going to work on something else until that comes in the morning. Pulling the pan down, I'm trying to get the bolts out. This is the same as the transmission that we did in the service that I did on the Magnum, and it's kind of a cool design. To be honest, I kind of like it. It uses these little clips rather than bolts going through the pan. So as soon as I get these out, that pan's gonna fall on the ground, which means we're gonna probably make a huge mess. But as Amber backs up, yeah, it's a little bit more difficult to get to on this car than it is the Magnum. You could get to all the bolts on the Magnum. You can't get to the back fan bolt on this one. So I don't know what we're gonna do here. Watch your head, Amber. There's a car there. So we were able to just put a little angle on the wrench, and yeah, already making a mess. I knew that was gonna happen.
The fan's not big enough.
Yeah, thanks. Well, the good news is the fluid doesn't look terrible.
Look, it's raining transmission fluid.
It smells, I don't know, it doesn't smell great, but. Why was I thinking when I did this on the Magnum it wasn't that full? I don't know.
Want to take a shower?
Not in transmission fluid.
Moisturize.
I don't think it is. Transmission fluid is like hydraulic oil. It's kind of not moisturizing, actually. We're gonna let this drain for a minute. We'll be back once it's done leaking all over the place. All right, this is gonna be a mess, guaranteed. I'm probably not gonna be able to hold on to it. It's probably gonna fall on the floor because my hands are covered in transmission fluid. I hate working on automatic transmissions. Okay. All right. Moment of truth. I think that looks pretty good inside. It's pretty clean. Transmission fluid doesn't smell great, but that's okay. We're servicing it, so.
Ooh, now I get the smell.
Yeah, it doesn't smell great.
Look, you still tried to take a shower in it.
All right, we're gonna let this drip for a minute. And if you're curious about how to change the filter, just pull it out, push the new one in. There's no bolts or anything to hold it in there. It just goes up in there and fits in there, and actually does stay pretty good. At least it did on the Magnum, so. Yeah, everything looks pretty okay in here, so.
Cool.
We're gonna roll the dice. We're gonna put it back in, but that'll be a project for tomorrow. I'm just gonna button the pan back up. Like I said, we'll go get the torque converter seal in the morning, and we'll check back in with you then. I'm not gonna show you putting the pan back up. It's really simple. These little notches catch the edge of the pan and hold it up. That's all there is to it. Okay, next day, got a seal. Looks right. I did check, it fits on the torque converter. I haven't crawled in here yet to see if it fits in the transmission, but we get this in, and then I'm taking a chance, and I'll know. I'm gonna drive it and see, but I'm gonna use the torque converter out of the other car because it just looks like it's in better shape. By that I mean it looks cleaner. So I'm gonna guess, based on what I saw in there, you saw the pan, it was clean inside the transmission, but this thing looks like it sat out in the rain and it's got water in it. I tried draining it and it's just giving me some milky fluid, and of the two that I have, I'm making the best decision I can make and say that that one's gonna be better. The fluid is in about the same condition as far as in that torque converter and in this transmission, and the problem that that car was having was not like a torque converter problem. It was I think it was actually an electrical problem, because it was just not wanting to go into gear. Like it would just do nothing. It wouldn't even shift. So that being said, we're gonna use that torque converter, this transmission, this seal, and we're gonna cross our fingers, and when we get this all together, we'll drive it some, make sure that it's gonna be good before we sell it to somebody. But I'm using the best of the parts that I have. I'm not gonna go buy anything else. If I have to, if this doesn't work, I'll go buy a torque converter and transmission from the junkyard, or I'll rebuild one of these. I don't know yet. I'll put this in. I doubt if you'll be able to see it, but if Amber can film it, she will. I'm just gonna use a piece of the pipe that I use to make engine mounts on extra parts. It's just, I don't know, 2-inch, 1/4-inch wall DOM tubing, and it fits pretty good on the seal. And it fits over the stator on the transmission, so bonus. Oh, I gotta put my arms up first. Oh, my hat falling off. Okay, I'm in the car. I think we got the right seal. So if you need a seal for the torque converter on a Chrysler 300, what you want to order is a front pump seal, not a torque converter seal, because even though they have a listing for a torque converter seal, and I don't know where in the car that other seal goes, but all three of the chain auto parts store listed the same seal under torque converter seal, and it don't fit in on the torque converter or in the transmission. So I don't know what that's for. And they all list the same part number for what they're calling a front pump seal, and it does fit. So we're just gonna drive it in flush because that's how the other one was. As I was taking the other one out, I found out that you can drive it in a little bit further, but the old one was flush, so that's what we're doing. I'm gonna pre-fill the torque converter, but I'm not gonna fill it, because if I fill it, when I tip the torque converter up to put it in, it's just gonna dump all that brand new fluid on the ground, and I'm not gonna get it in there anyway. So I'm just gonna put a little bit in it and try to, you know, about half full. Both of these torque converters, when I pulled them out, had drained back. I don't know if that's a feature, if that's a problem, but I just want to have some in here, you know, about the halfway point. And I don't know where the halfway point is, so I'm just gonna pour until it feels like it has some. And either way, it's pre-lubed, it's not dry inside, so that's the important part. I don't know exactly what's inside these torque converters, but I imagine there's definitely a bearing somewhere in there, and there's clutches for sure, because this has lockup. So all that stuff is gonna want some lubrication when you first fire the engine up, so now it's got some. I think we're ready to see if this thing runs. We still got to bleed the brakes, but it does need bled brakes to run. We still got to put the windshield wipers on. Hopefully we don't need the windshield wipers to get it to run. It's full of coolant, and if you're doing this, I'm not going to show you how to do it. I'm just going to give you a tip, because this is getting coolant in these Hemis and new cars in general with an expansion tank and a radiator with no cap can be a challenge. But what works for me on this one, not saying it'll work for you, is take this plug out that's the highest point in the system. Lift the front end of the car up in the air, and I get the front tires a foot off the ground, and pour coolant in until it runs out of this hole. And then still let it warm up once and let it shut and cool off. Don't drive it much until you've got a, I don't try not to drive it until I have at least 2 heat cycles in it, because it'll suck more in as the heat cycles. So we're gonna set the camera up here. Amber's gonna crawl in there, and we're gonna see if this thing will fire, and hopefully not catch on fire. Crank it. That sound is the sound of not having any torque converter bolts in it.
Temp 2.
This time with torque converter bolts in it. It's in park. Without the mid pipe, sounds good. Got a mid off already. That would be a lack of power steering fluid, which we knew was going to happen.
I thought it was completely full.
Well, it was, but it still had to fill the whole system up. Okay, guys. Well, I think we're just going to clean up for the night, and tomorrow we'll work on getting this ready to sell. Just got to finish buttoning up the back there, change the seats, clean the whole thing out, wash it. I don't think we're going to wax it or anything. Change the rear tires. But first, before we change the tires, we're going to go for a test drive and see how it runs. So we'll check in just a minute.
Did you check to make sure O'Reilly had those rivets and stuff?
I didn't.
We're going to go ahead and change out this too, because we have another one that looks so much better.
It's raining rivet, plastic rivet heads. It's all back together. The hood doesn't fit exactly right. I'm sure it's got bent at one time or another. I adjusted as best I could. I might work on it some more, but for now, it's not raining, so we're gonna go for a test drive, come back here and pressure wash it, and then we just gotta swap our seats out, detail the inside, and then bring it back in here and, well, we're gonna bring it back in here to detail the inside and all that. But then we gotta, we're gonna wash everything, and I don't think we're gonna wax it, I think we're just gonna wash it.
What is that noise?
Sounds like something's loose.
In the front suspension. We should be able to see it, right? Are you paranoid about pulling out in front of another car too closely too?
I am right now.
Yeah. Shifts.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. 3. Stops nice and straight. So the guy said that other suspension had new, I think he said ball joints, and I assumed it had new suspension. Everything felt pretty tight, but I'm gonna have to go back and look it over a little closer. It had new upper ball joints, and that was it. So I imagine that that's the clunking that we're hearing is something in the front suspension. So we will have to see what it is and figure out what we got to do to fix that, because I won't sell a car like this. But I mean, it runs good, drives good, it's not getting hot. It had half a tank of, or a quarter of a tank of pretty nasty gas in it, so I'd expected it to have a little bit of trouble running, but it seems to be running fine. No check engine light so far. Got a TPMS sensor, but I imagine that they're just dead. It's got one that's showing 0 and 2 that's showing low, and I just checked the air and all the tires. We'll have enough miles on it, or should have enough miles on it by the time we get done with this drive to have resolved the
Isn't it usually like 5 miles or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Or is it over a certain speed limit?
No, it's a certain number of miles usually. Oh, that mirror is kind of an obstruction to your vision going around a corner like that.
Sounds nice.
Yeah. So this has got the mid muffler delete that I want to do to the Magnum. But it just haven't done it. So I think we might be rebuilding the suspension again. We'll go back, clean it up.
We need to get that done. At least get some pictures of it, and then we'll figure out because it's supposed to rain for like the next week straight. So we're gonna take advantage of this break in the rain to get it nice and clean and get the pictures taken, and then we can mess with the suspension and get it figured out while it's in the garage.
So the tire pressure monitor light just went out. That must mean that it relearned the sensors, so it's got good sensors all the way around. Got no lights on the dash, no active phone. Amber did connect my phone to it, but since it's in the garage, it's not connected.
Yeah, when I tried to set up his phone, somehow it was in French, and I had absolutely no idea how to switch it back, but I finally got it figured out.
It doesn't go to the...
What are you trying to get?
Trying to get the... There, that one. Still not keen on pulling out in front of anybody.
Right.
I don't know the car well enough yet. Also noticed that this window switch doesn't roll down. Oh, it does. There. Oh.
It wants to.
Yeah, and the door locks don't work on this side either. I think it's got a bad switch. We have an extra one, so we'll change that as well while we're working on that mirror.
She's got some get up and go. I want it.
Yeah, it runs pretty good.
Pretty nice car.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you guys, I'm kind of having a conundrum right now. I'm not sure if I want to sell this or keep it and sell the Magnum. This has a little bit more creature comforts. It's 2 years newer than the Magnum. It's got a lot more miles than the Magnum, but I've always wanted a 300 and I like this car. I don't care too much for the red, but I also don't like the black on the Magnum, so I mean, And this is worse in some ways than the Magnum, but it's nicer in some ways than the Magnum. Right now the seats are way worse than the Magnum, but we got those seats that we got. Everything works on this car. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do.
For now, we're gonna clean it up, fix the rest of its problems, and take another test drive. Maybe we'll go to town or something in it and see how it really runs. Still no rain yet. The outside's cleaned up pretty nicely. Doesn't look too bad. We may or may not polish it. Haven't decided, but for now, we're gonna pull it inside and clean out the inside. It's pretty dirty. You can't really see it too well on the camera, but and then we're going to replace those 2 seats, so no more duct tape, and just give everything a really good wiping down and get all of the leaves out of it, which I'm not really sure why there's leaves in it, but back isn't as bad as the front. But yeah, that's the plan. We're gonna pull it inside and clean out the inside. But while we have it out here, we're gonna take some pictures of the outside while it's nice and clean and it's not raining. That looks so much better. Seats are nice and clean, no duct tape, no dirt. Almost looks like a new car, or at least a well taken care of used car. It really wasn't that bad. This car was not that bad at all. The worst part was that driver's door where all the grease was, but a little bit of degreaser and cleaned it right up.
I have a plan. I'm gonna list them both. I'm gonna list the Magnum and the 300, and we're gonna let Facebook Marketplace decide which one we keep. We're gonna go ahead and get this listed. It's got some front end problems. We're gonna put it on the rack, figure out what it is, and get it fixed, but that'll be in a different video because we need to get this one up, and it doesn't really fit. I mean, it does fit in the scope of this video, but that's the kind of stuff that you can expect to find when you buy a non-running car on Facebook. It's always gonna have more than what you originally thought. And I mean, the transmission was a huge win because it wasn't bad, and the torque converter out of the other transmission works fine. We drove it, it locks up fine, it's smooth, it doesn't have any problems, it shifts into all the gears the way it's supposed to, so we're gonna call that good. Get the front end figured out. Like I said, we're gonna list it with the front end the way it is, but I'm gonna order all the parts, and we'll just give whoever wants to buy it the option of taking the parts or waiting for me to get them put on.
At the end of the day, we know how much the parts are gonna cost to fix the front end, and we're still not gonna lose money on the deal because we bought right at the beginning.
And that's, I guess, and not only did we buy right at the beginning, but we bought the parts to fix it right. Like, so just for an example, if you were to take this car and say I bought it off the marketplace and I was gonna flip it, even as cheap as I got it, by the time I bought a motor and then we had to fix that cradle, by the time you fixed the cradle, and then we had to replace all the missing parts and fix the seats, if we had bought this and had to buy all those parts at a junkyard, we'd have been buried in this car. We'd have been well over what it's worth, even if we tried to get top dollar for it. So that's kind of, I guess, my secret to flipping a car. And I'm that way with everything. Like, if I'm gonna swap a motor, or if I'm gonna do anything where I'm trying to take parts that don't belong in a car, I want a complete donor car, because then you get everything. We've got every single piece of this car we have a replacement part for. Some of them aren't good, some of them were good, but we put the 2 cars together and made a good car out of it. And in fact, so good that I really kind of want to keep it. But I also like my Magnum, and my head's in a knot right now because I don't know which one I want to keep. So like I said, we're gonna let Facebook Marketplace decide which one we keep. But that's where we're gonna end this video. Check out the store below this video for merch.
Free shipping in the US.
Yeah, free shipping in the US. And we didn't get any submissions for the subscriber showcase this week, so we're just gonna plug it here. If you wanna have your project featured on our Sunday premiere video, send us just a couple of pictures and a description of what it is. Doesn't have to be long, doesn't have to be fancy. If you wanna send us a short video, we can throw that in there. And we will feature your project on our Sunday premiere video. See you soon. Why'd you throw these waters away?
They were in a car for God knows how long.
I don't care. I'll drink them.
Cheap ass. It's $3 for 36 pack.
But I'd have to go to the store to get those. They're still sealed. They haven't even had the top opened yet. I'll drink those.
Anyways.